Hi everyone. Welcome to Lunar Sleeping Studio. The rain had been falling since dawn, soft at first, then steadier, until the whole town felt wrapped in a cozy gray blanket. And inside a tiny warm bakery at the corner of Willow Street, Elena wiped her hands on her apron and breathed in the sweet scent of cinnamon rising from the oven as footsteps splashed outside, and a small shiver ran through her, because rainy days always made her remember her mother's voice saying that storms were just stories told by the sky. And as the bell over the bakery door jingled, she looked up to see a boy around 12, soaked from head to toe, clutching a school bag pressed against his chest like he was trying to protect something fragile hidden inside. His hair dripping, his cheeks red from the cold, and Elena walked closer slowly, speaking in the gentlest tone she had, asking him if he wanted to come in and warm up because the rain was only getting heavier, and he hesitated at the doorway, looking back at the wet street as if debating whether he should stay or keep running before giving a small nod and stepping inside, the warmth of the bakery wrapping around him like a hug he didn't know he needed. And he stood silently for a moment staring at the glowing lights, the fresh pastries on display, the steam fogging the windows, and the boy whispered that he didn't have money but he just needed somewhere to wait for a little while. So Elena smiled softly and told him that warm places on rainy days were meant to be shared, not sold, and she guided him to the small wooden table next to the window where the rain made tiny rivers down the glass, then hurried to bring him a towel, a cup of hot chocolate, and a plate of freshly baked honey rolls. And as he sat there, hesitant but slowly relaxing as the heat soaked through his fingers, Elena watched him with a quiet concern because his sad, tense eyes looked like they had been carrying storms far heavier than the one outside. And she finally asked his name, hearing him say it was Lucas, in a voice so small she almost missed it. And when she asked if everything was okay, he swallowed hard, eyes dropping to the table as though he was ashamed to let the truth fall out, whispering that he had run out of his house after another argument, and he didn't know where else to go because nobody ever listened. And the rain outside hit the windows harder as if echoing the weight in his chest. And Elena pulled out the chair opposite him, sitting down slowly, telling him that sometimes people shout not because they don't care but because they don't know how to say what they really feel. And the boy's lip trembled, admitting that his father was angry all the time, not because of him but because of work. And his mother was too tired to notice anything, and he felt invisible in his own home, like he could disappear and no one would notice. And as Elena listened, she felt something in her heart tighten because she had once been that child, lost in the noise of adults who forgot how to love softly. And she reminded him that storms look frightening when you're standing in the middle of them, but even the fiercest ones pass. And sometimes they even leave rainbows behind. And when Lucas looked up with teary eyes, she smiled and pushed the plate of honey rolls closer, telling him that comfort didn't solve everything, but it helped the heart breathe again. And he finally took a bite, his shoulders relaxing a little as he tasted the warm sweetness melting away a part of his fear. And just then the bakery door opened again, letting in a gust of cold air and a tall man in a wet jacket who looked around frantically until his eyes fell on the boy. And Lucas froze as his father stepped toward him, breathing heavily, his face full of panic and regret instead of anger. And he dropped to one knee beside the table, apologizing in a trembling voice, saying he had searched everywhere and feared something terrible had happened, admitting he hadn't been a good listener, hadn't been patient, hadn't realized how deeply his son was hurting, and Lucas's eyes widened. Because it was the first time he had ever seen his father look scared to lose him. And Elena quietly stepped back to give them space as the father wrapped his arms around his son in a trembling, rain-soaked embrace, promising to do better, to listen more, to speak kindly, and Lucas leaned into him with a shaky breath. And the warm lights of the bakery flickered gently as if blessing the moment. And when the father finally stood up, thanking Elena repeatedly for protecting his son from both the storm outside and the storm inside his heart, she simply nodded, watching them walk to the door together. Their hands finally joined, and as the bell jingled once more and they disappeared into the softened rain, she whispered to herself that sometimes all a storm needs is a warm room, a kind word, and a safe place to rest, while behind her the oven timer beeped softly, reminding her that even on the rainiest of days there was always something rising with hope. The rain eased into a softer rhythm the next morning, tapping against the windows like a gentle reminder that the world was still waking up, and inside the bakery Elena unlocked the door with a quiet sigh, her thoughts drifting back to Lucas and the way his small, frightened voice had trembled last night, wondering if he and his father had found a peaceful moment after leaving. And as she wiped the counters and lit the warm lamps, the bakery filled with the smell of rising dough and melting butter, a scent that always made her feel that no matter how heavy life became, sweetness still found a way to rise. And she was kneading a batch of cinnamon dough when the bell over the door chimed and a woman stepped inside holding a closed umbrella and carrying an exhausted look in her eyes. Her clothes neat but damp at the edges, her expression polite but strained as though she had been holding her breath for hours. And Elena greeted her warmly, asking what she could prepare for her on such a rainy morning, and the woman hesitated before asking for something warm, something that felt like comfort, something that could remind her that the world wasn't as heavy as it felt. And Elena guided her to the same window-side table Lucas had sat at the previous night, noticing how the woman's fingers trembled slightly as she set her umbrella down. And when Elena brought her a cup of chamomile tea and a fresh almond pastry, the woman looked up with eyes that were filled not with hunger but with a silent plea to be understood, and she whispered that she hadn't slept much because her daughter, Nora, had been sick for days and the hospital kept giving them different answers, leaving her with a knot of fear twisting tighter with each passing hour. And Elena's heart softened immediately because she knew that particular kind of fear, the kind that made every breath feel heavy, and she sat down beside her, listening as the woman explained how Nora was only 6 years old, too young to understand why she couldn't go to school or play. And every time she whimpered in her sleep the mother felt another crack in her spirit. And she admitted quietly that she had come into the bakery not just for food, but because she needed a place where the world felt softer, even for a few minutes. And Elena assured her calmly that sometimes a warm room and a moment of stillness could help a heart gather itself again. And as the woman sipped the tea with trembling hands, 2 more customers entered the bakery, an elderly man with a walking stick and a teenage girl who seemed to be guiding him gently, their movements synchronized like they had practiced it many times. And Elena greeted them cheerfully, noticing how the girl's smile was polite but her eyes were tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying someone else's weight for a long time. And when she seated them, she overheard the girl explaining to the elderly man her grandfather that the doctor had said his eyesight might not get any better, and she promised she would read to him every night until his vision faded completely because she wouldn't let him feel alone in the dark. And the old man simply squeezed her hand, telling her she was the brightest part of his life. And Elena felt the bakery suddenly fill with quiet stories of struggle, love, fear, and hope, as though the rain outside had washed everyone's worries into her little shop. And she moved from table to table with gentle words, warm pastries, and soft smiles, offering comfort in small ways that didn't fix the world, but made it feel a little more bearable. And as she brought another tray of pastries to the counter, a sudden gust of wind pushed the door open again, and Lucas appeared with his father by his side, both holding a small container of cookies wrapped in foil. And Lucas smiled shyly as he approached Elena, telling her that he wanted to bring something back because yesterday she helped him more than she knew. And his father placed a hand on his son's shoulder, explaining that they had talked for hours last night. Not yelling, not blaming, just talking for the first time in a long time. And Lucas had suggested they bake cookies together as a way to begin again. And when Elena opened the foil and saw the slightly lumpy, imperfect cookies, she felt her chest warm because she knew these were made with more heart than experience. And she thanked them sincerely, telling Lucas that the best things in life were rarely perfect but always meaningful. And Lucas grinned before glancing around the bakery, noticing the tired mother, the elderly man, the teenage girl. And he whispered to Elena that it looked like everyone here needed a little comfort today. And Elena nodded with a gentle smile, replying that rainy days tended to bring people to the places where their hearts finally felt heard. And Lucas's father asked if she needed help delivering pastries to the tables because he and Lucas would love to assist, and Elena agreed, handing them a small tray. And as father and son moved around the bakery with shy smiles, offering pastries and warm greetings, the atmosphere shifted from heavy to hopeful, each person in the room feeling a little less alone. And when the teenage girl helped the elderly man bite into a soft pastry, he chuckled quietly and said he could almost see the sweetness through the taste. And the tired mother smiled for the first time that day as she watched strangers being kind to one another. And Elena stood behind the counter watching the simple magic unfold, realizing that her bakery wasn't just a place that sold bread and pastries, but a place where weary hearts wandered in seeking warmth, connection, and a reminder that even small kindnesses could soften the hardest days. And as the bell chimed again and more customers arrived seeking refuge from the drizzle, she whispered to herself that every story inside these walls mattered, and the bakery, her little sanctuary on Willow Street, would hold them all gently, one rainy day at a time. The third day of rain came with a soft, misty drizzle that blurred the streetlights and wrapped the town in a dreamy gray haze. And inside the bakery, Elena was already awake before dawn, standing by the window with a warm mug in her hands, watching raindrops slide down the glass like tiny travelers carrying stories from the sky. And she felt a deep quiet settle inside her chest because she knew today would bring more heart-seeking comfort. More stories slipping in through the door along with the scent of rain, so she tied her apron, lit the lamps, and filled the bakery with the warm glow that made people feel welcome even before they tasted anything. And as she started mixing batter for lemon muffins, the front door creaked open slowly, revealing a little girl no older than 7. Holding a soggy stuffed rabbit by its ear and looking like she had walked through half the world just to reach this cozy corner. And Elena crouched down gently, asking if the girl was lost, but the girl shook her head with a tiny determination and explained that her name was Mila and she was looking for a place where she could wait for someone very important. Someone she said was coming back today because they promised they would, and Elena guided her inside, placing the stuffed rabbit on a warm chair and wrapping Mila in a soft blanket while bringing her a cup of warm milk. And when the girl held the cup with both hands, she whispered that her big brother had gone away months ago to fix his life, but today he promised he would return, and she had waited by the town bus stop for hours until the rain became too heavy. So she came to the bakery because her mother always said kind places shine even on the cloudiest days. And Elena's heart swelled with worry because promises could be fragile things, and the world didn't always return people the same way they left. But she smiled gently, telling Mila that she could wait here as long as she needed because warm places were made for moments like this. And as the morning grew brighter, Lucas entered the bakery with his father again, both carrying umbrellas this time. And when Lucas saw Mila curled up on the chair, he whispered to Elena asking if she was okay, and Elena nodded softly, telling him her brother was supposed to return today. And Lucas, remembering what it felt like to wait for someone to finally see him, approached her slowly, offering her one of his homemade cookies, and Mila accepted it with a shy smile, her tiny shoulders relaxing a bit as Lucas sat beside her and showed her how he had drawn tiny smiley faces on the cookies using chocolate chips, trying to make her laugh, and she did a quiet, soft giggle that warmed the entire room. As the bakery filled gradually with morning customers, the tired mother from the previous day walked in again, this time holding her daughter Nora, wrapped in a small pink blanket, her cheeks slightly flushed but her eyes brighter than before. And when Elena asked how she was doing, the mother exhaled with relief, explaining that the new doctor had finally figured out what was wrong and gave her proper medicine. And for the first time in days, Nora slept peacefully through the night, and Elena placed a small blueberry tart on their table, saying that victories, even small ones, deserved sweetness, and the mother smiled gratefully, brushing Nora's hair with trembling hands that now held more hope than fear. Moments later, the teenage girl returned with her grandfather, supporting him as he sat down slowly, his cane tapping gently against the wooden floor, and Elena noticed the girl's eyes looked less tired today, as though she had found new strength overnight. And the old man told Elena with a soft smile that the pastries from yesterday were the best part of his day, the one thing bright enough to cut through the fog slowly settling over his fading sight. And Elena placed a warm butter croissant in front of him, promising him that no matter what darkness approached, there would always be flavors that brought back light. But just as the bakery settled into its familiar rhythm of warmth and quiet conversation, the door swung open hard, letting in a tall young man drenched in rainwater, his breath uneven, his clothes wrinkled as though he had been traveling all night. And Mila's eyes widened instantly as she shot up from her chair, shouting his name Evan, and ran into his arms with the kind of relief that soaked deeper than the rain that clung to him, and he held her tightly, burying his face in her hair, whispering apologies, telling her he was sorry for taking so long, sorry for leaving without hugging her enough, sorry for making her wait in the rain. And Mila hugged him tighter, saying she knew he would come because he promised. And Evan lifted her gently into his arms, turning to Elena with an exhausted smile, explaining that he had been away in a rehabilitation center trying to overcome his addictions, wanting to return a version of himself that would make his little sister proud. And when he thanked Elena for taking care of Mila, he sounded like a man who had carried too many regrets and was finally learning how to put them down. The whole bakery seemed to pause for a moment, listening to Mila's small voice telling Evan that she wasn't angry, just happy he came back, and Lucas, watching from across the room, whispered to his father that sometimes people did change if they were given enough love to return to, and his father nodded, squeezing his shoulder. As Evan dried Mila's hair with the towel Elena handed him, the other customers quietly watched the emotional reunion, each of them seeing a reflection of their own battles, fears, losses, second chances inside that warm moment. And Elena felt something powerful bloom inside her chest, a reminder that her bakery wasn't just a shelter from the rain, but a place where broken hearts found each other, where people learned how to heal, where promises were tested and sometimes beautifully kept. And as Mila nibbled on a fresh chocolate pastry while clinging to Evan's arm, the rain outside softened even more, falling like a gentle applause for those brave enough to return, to forgive, and to begin again. And Elena whispered to herself that every story inside this bakery was slowly weaving into something bigger, something meaningful, something that one rainy day at a time was teaching everyone who walked through the door how deeply they needed one another. The rain returned with a steady rhythm the next morning, not harsh or angry, but soft and melodic, like the sky was humming a lullaby over the quiet town. And inside the bakery Elena lit the warm lamps one by one, watching the soft yellow glow push back the grayness outside as she arranged freshly baked loaves on the counter, her heart still wrapped in the lingering warmth of yesterday's reunion between Mila and Evan. And she couldn't help wondering how many other souls out there were fighting battles unseen. How many were waiting for someone to finally say the words they needed to hear? And just as she placed a tray of steaming muffins in the display, the door slowly opened and Evan stepped in with Mila holding tightly onto his hand, both of them smiling shyly like they were stepping into a place that felt safer than home. And Elena welcomed them with a bright warmth that made Mila run into her arms, the stuffed rabbit pressed between them as Evan explained with a quiet gratitude that today was their first day trying to build a new routine together, something stable, something hopeful, and he thought the bakery would be the perfect place to start. And Elena felt her throat tighten with emotion as she prepared 2 mugs of hot cocoa for them, decorating the foam with tiny chocolate swirls that made Mila giggle and Evan blinked slowly, almost as if he couldn't believe kindness could feel this gentle. Before she could place the mugs on the table, the bell chimed again and Lucas walked in with his father, this time carrying a small potted plant that still had raindrops resting on its leaves. And when Elena raised an eyebrow curiously, Lucas explained that his father said plants grow better in places filled with warmth, so they wanted to gift it to her as a thank you for what she did for them. And Elena accepted it with heartfelt appreciation, placing it on the counter beside the register, where the leaves immediately seemed to glow under the soft bakery lights. And as Lucas went to sit with Mila, who greeted him with the biggest smile, Elena noticed how naturally their small group was beginning to form, like rain had washed them all into the same harbor. Just as she was about to join them with their drinks, the door opened again and the teenage girl walked in with her grandfather slowly stepping behind her, holding onto her arm while tapping his cane softly on the wooden floor. And Elena hurried toward them, concern filling her chest because she noticed the girl's eyes were more swollen today, like she had cried more than she had slept. And when she helped the old man to his chair, the girl whispered quietly that his vision had blurred even more this morning, to the point he struggled to distinguish shapes. And Elena saw the man smile despite the sadness in his granddaughter's voice, telling her not to worry, that he had lived a long, beautiful life, and he wasn't afraid of the darkness because he still had her voice to guide him. And the girl fought to keep her tears from falling, gripping his hand tightly, whispering that she wasn't ready to see him fade, that she didn't know how to imagine the world without him seeing her face. And Elena placed 2 warm croissants on their table, adding softly that love didn't need eyes, only presence. And the old man nodded gratefully while the girl finally let a tear slip down her cheek. The bakery was beginning to fill with its familiar soft conversations when the door creaked open again, this time revealing a man wearing a faded coat, carrying a guitar case covered in stickers worn by age and travel, and he stepped inside with hesitation, his tired eyes scanning the room as though searching for a place that might accept him. And Elena approached him gently, asking if he needed somewhere to sit, and he replied in a voice both melodic and tired that he was a wandering musician who had been traveling city to city for months, searching for a feeling he couldn't quite name. And the rain had pushed him inside because something about the warm light in the window reminded him of his childhood kitchen, where his mother used to hum lullabies while kneading dough. And Elena guided him to a seat near the corner, placing in front of him a steaming cup of herbal tea she hadn't even realized she had brewed. And he smiled, saying it smelled like the tea his mother used to make before she passed away. And Elena felt her heart twist with a mix of sorrow and warmth. As the musician settled in, he reached into his guitar case and pulled out a small cloth, gently wiping the instrument as if it were the last fragile memory he had left. And the noise caught the attention of Mila, Lucas, Evan, and even the old man whose hearing was still sharp. And when the musician noticed their curious gazes, he gave a shy smile, saying he hadn't played for an audience in weeks because he felt like the world no longer listened. And Mila, with her innocent bravery, asked if he could play something soft, something rainy, something warm, and the musician nodded with a tender smile, lifting the guitar into his arms like it was a breathing companion. The first notes floated through the bakery like a warm breeze, gentle and trembling, weaving between the tables, wrapping around the customers, settling deep into their chests like a familiar comfort they didn't know they needed. And the melody carried something fragile and ache, a longing, a hope. And as the music filled the room, Mila leaned against Evan's arm. Lucas closed his eyes with a small smile. The tired mother held Nora closer. The teenage girl rested her head against her grandfather's shoulder, and even Elena stood still behind the counter, her eyes glistening with emotion because the song felt like 1,000 memories whispered into one moment. When the musician finished, the bakery sat in a heavy, warm silence, the kind that happens only when something true touches everyone at once. And then the old man, the one losing his vision, lifted his head and whispered that he wished he could see the musician play because he could feel the beauty in every note. And the musician stepped closer, placing his calloused hand on the old man's, saying that music was meant to be felt, not seen, and that he believed people with the deepest hearts always heard the world more clearly. Elena watched with a swelling heart as the rain outside began to lighten, turning into a soft drizzle, and she suddenly realized something profound. These people weren't strangers anymore. They were slowly becoming a small family built not by blood, but by storms that pushed them through her door. And the bakery, her warm little corner on Willow Street, was stitching their stories together with comfort, kindness, and the quiet power of shared humanity. And as the musician played one more gentle tune, Elena whispered to herself that every day in this bakery brought new pieces of a larger story she didn't fully understand yet. But she knew, deep in her heart, that something beautiful was being born right here, one rainy morning at a time. The rain softened into a thin silver curtain the next morning, barely more than a whisper against the windows, and Elena stood inside the bakery with her hands wrapped around a steaming cup of tea, feeling the quiet in the air settle into her bones like a gentle breath. Because she knew by now that rainy mornings always carried stories to her doorstep. Stories wrapped in soaked coats, trembling hands, hopeful eyes, or tired footsteps. And today she felt something different, a strange, tender anticipation she couldn't quite explain, as if the sky itself was waiting for something important to unfold. She unlocked the door and stepped back just in time for Lucas to rush inside with his father following behind him. Both of them smiling with the kind of warmth that only grew out of prepared hearts, and Lucas placed a small notebook on the counter, explaining in his soft, proud voice that he had started writing little stories inspired by the people in the bakery, because he wanted to remember how kindness looked and felt. And Elena opened the notebook gently, her heart swelling when she saw his childish handwriting describing the brave grandpa, the girl with the stuffed rabbit, the pretty lady who worries about her baby, and even the man who sings sadness into beautiful songs. And she told Lucas that one day he might grow into a storyteller who could give comfort to people far beyond this bakery. And Lucas beamed as if her words were a gift he had been waiting his whole life to receive. As she placed muffins in the display, the tired mother entered carrying little Nora again. But today her steps were steadier, her smile brighter, and Nora, now awake and resting her head on her mother's shoulder, reached out toward Elena as if recognizing her scent of sugar and warmth. And Elena kissed her small hand, offering a soft pastry shaped like a tiny heart. And the mother whispered that Nora's fever had finally broken completely. That last night was the first peaceful night in a week. And Elena felt joy bloom inside her chest, because even the smallest victories in this bakery felt like celebrations of life itself. Soon after, the door opened slowly and a teenage girl stepped in with her grandfather. And this time the old man's hand trembled a little more as he tapped his cane forward, guided by the girl's steady grip. And Elena noticed how the girl held a folded piece of paper in her hand, squeezing it with nervous energy. And when she seated her grandfather and handed him the croissant he always chose, she finally exhaled and placed the paper on the counter, explaining that it was a letter she wrote for him, a letter she hoped he would read before his sight dimmed too much, but she was afraid it might break him, even though her heart felt like it would break if she didn't say the words soon. And Elena held her trembling hand, telling her that love sometimes needed courage more than it needed timing. And the girl nodded with tears brimming in her eyes before walking back to sit beside her grandfather, who reached out and brushed her cheek with a thumb he could no longer see clearly, whispering that no matter what happened, she would always be the brightest light of his life. Just as Elena wiped a tear from her cheek, the musician entered quietly, the guitar case slung gently over his shoulder, his clothes still damp from sleeping wherever he could find shelter. And he nodded at Elena as he settled in his usual corner seat, his fingers tracing the worn wood of his guitar like it was the only thing that had stayed with him through every high and low. And Elena brought him a warm roll without being asked, and he smiled, the kind of grateful, fragile smile that carried entire years of loneliness behind it. But before she could return to the counter, the door slammed open so hard that everyone in the bakery jumped, and a woman burst inside with a frantic expression, her hair tangled from the wind, her eyes wide with fear, and she clutched her bag tightly to her chest as she scanned the room, her voice trembling as she asked Elena if she had seen a small golden locket anywhere, because she had dropped it outside in the rain, and it was the last memory she had of her mother, who passed away last year. And she felt like she was losing her all over again. And Elena rushed outside with her immediately, searching the puddles, scanning the wet pavement, her heart racing as the woman knelt in the rain with shaking hands, whispering that she couldn't bear the thought of losing it. Lucas and Mila hurried outside too, followed by Evan, who shielded the children under his jacket, and even the tired mother peeked out the door holding Nora close, while the teenage girl remained beside her grandfather but turned her face toward the doorway, listening intensely for any sign of hope. The musician stood near the entrance, his guitar forgotten as he scanned the ground with determined eyes. Minutes passed, the rain pattering softly around them, puddles rippling under their movements, until Lucas suddenly gasped and pointed to a tiny glint near the edge of the gutter, and Elena rushed over, kneeling to lift the delicate golden locket from the muddy water. The chain tangled, but the heart-shaped charm shining faintly under the gray sky. And when she placed it into the trembling hands of the woman burst into tears with a sound that came from the deepest part of her chest, clutching the locket to her heart as if the world had been given back to her in one fragile piece of metal. The others stepped closer, offering soft words, gentle smiles, small touches of support, and the woman looked around at the faces surrounding her, strangers who had stepped into the rain to help her, and she whispered through her tears that she had never felt kindness like this from a group of people she didn't even know. And Elena squeezed her hand, telling her that storms often pulled people together who were meant to find each other. They all returned inside together, dripping from the rain, laughing softly as they wiped their clothes, and the bakery filled with a new warmth. A shared warmth born not from pastries or lights but from human hearts reaching out to one another. And as everyone settled back into their seats, the musician lifted his guitar and began to play a soft, soothing melody that wrapped around the room like a warm blanket, and the woman who found her locket sat quietly, holding it with shaky fingers, whispering a thank you that seemed to drift into the very walls of the bakery. Elena stood behind the counter, watching all of them, Lucas writing in his notebook, Mila feeding her rabbit tiny crumbs, Evan smiling for the first time without guilt in his eyes, the mother holding Nora peacefully, the teenage girl wiping her grandfather's mouth as he smiled blindly in her direction. The musician playing softly like healing was flowing through his fingertips, and she felt a deep truth settle in her chest. Every person who entered her bakery carried storms inside them, and somehow, through warmth, kindness, and rain-soaked mornings, they were slowly becoming one another's shelter. And she whispered to herself that even though the rain outside hadn't stopped, something beautiful was beginning to bloom inside these walls, something that felt like hope taking root in the hearts of strangers who were no longer strangers at all. The rain deepened again the next morning, falling in soft sheets that blurred the world into watercolor shapes outside the bakery windows, and Elena stood quietly at the counter, listening to the steady drumming on the roof while she prepared a large batch of caramel-glazed bread rolls because something in her heart told her today would require extra warmth. The kind of warmth only sweet bread and gentle smiles could offer. And as she stirred the warm caramel, her thoughts drifted to the people who had filled the bakery with fragile stories over the past few days, each one carrying their own storms, each one slowly finding comfort beneath her glowing lights. She had just placed a fresh tray in the oven when the bell chimed, and in walked Evan, holding Mila's hand as she skipped beside him with her stuffed rabbit wearing a tiny blue ribbon she must have tied on herself. And Evan explained with a proud but nervous smile that today he wanted to look for a job, something steady, something honest, something that would allow him to stand on his own feet again without falling into old habits. So he asked if Mila could stay here until he returned, because he trusted Elena to keep her safe in a way he could not yet provide. And Elena nodded warmly, telling him that Mila would be just fine here, and Mila hugged him tightly before he left, whispering that she believed in him. And Evan swallowed hard, visibly moved by words he never believed he deserved. Mila settled into her usual chair, drawing little pictures on scraps of paper, and Elena watched her with a soft smile as the bakery door opened again to reveal Lucas, this time dripping wet and shivering not from cold, but from excitement as he explained that he had written a new story in his notebook, one about a bakery that healed hearts, and he wanted to read it to everyone when the time was right. And Elena felt her chest warm because children always seemed to understand the world more deeply than adults who had forgotten how to listen. Moments later, the tired mother appeared again with Nora, who was wrapped in a yellow blanket this time, her cheeks less pale, her eyes brighter, and Elena couldn't help but smile at the sight of the little girl lifting her tiny arm toward Lucas in recognition, and Lucas blushed as he waved at her shyly before returning to his notebook. The mother took a seat nearby and whispered that the doctors were hopeful now, that Nora's energy was returning day by day, and Elena placed a warm apple tart on their table without charging anything, saying some blessings were too beautiful not to celebrate. Just then the teenage girl entered with her grandfather, guiding him with slow, careful steps, and the old man smiled faintly as he inhaled the scent of fresh pastries, saying it reminded him of the festivals he visited when he was a boy. And Elena helped him sit gently as the girl placed a folded letter on the table again, staring at it with trembling fingers, unable to decide whether today was the day she would finally read it to him before his eyesight faded completely. And Elena placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, whispering that love had its own timing, and when the heart was ready the words would come on their own. The door swung open again, but this time more slowly, revealing the traveling musician, who looked even more exhausted than usual, and Elena noticed his fingers trembling not with cold but with emotion. And when she asked him if he was alright, he replied in a hushed voice that last night he had written a song, one he hadn't been able to write for years, because something about the people in this bakery reminded him of what it felt like to belong somewhere, and his eyes shimmered with tears he quickly wiped away as he carried his guitar to his corner table. But before he could sit down, another unexpected figure entered the bakery, a man in his late 50s with a strict posture, well-pressed clothes, and deep lines etched across his forehead. And the moment the traveling musician saw him, his face went pale as if all the warmth in his body disappeared at once. And Elena felt her breath catch when she saw him whisper a single word, "Father," so softly she almost didn't hear it. The strict man stepped forward slowly, his eyes locked on the musician's trembling hands, and the room fell silent as the musician lowered his gaze, gripping the guitar case so tightly his knuckles turned white, and Elena sensed a storm building inside him, one far stronger than the rain outside. The father approached him with a tight jaw, saying he had been searching for him for months, that he had found a letter from a hospital saying his son hadn't shown up for his scheduled therapy sessions, and he feared the worst. And the musician's voice cracked as he replied that he didn't want to come home because he felt like a disappointment, like he had failed too many times to ever be welcomed back. And the father's stern expression softened, trembling as he admitted he had been hard on him, pushing him too much, expecting perfection when his son only needed understanding. The musician blinked, stunned by words he had waited decades to hear. And the old man with fading vision whispered from across the room that sometimes pride built the walls that love later had to tear down. The father stepped closer and placed a hand on his son's shoulder, saying he wasn't angry, just scared of losing him forever, and his voice shook with truth. The musician's eyes brimmed with tears, and for a moment he didn't speak, just leaned into his father's touch like a child who'd spent years wandering without a home. Mila, watching quietly, held Lucas's hand, whispering that grown-ups cried too when their hearts hurt. And in the silence that followed, Elena realized something profound. Everyone in the bakery that morning had been carrying something heavy: fear, hope, regret, longing, and somehow, through the rain and warmth, all of their stories were beginning to collide in unexpected, beautiful ways. As the musician finally broke down into his father's embrace, the teenage girl clutched her letter tighter. The mother kissed Nora's forehead softly. Lucas wrote another line in his notebook, and Mila drew a picture of a sun peeking through clouds, and Elena felt the bakery glow brighter than the lamps themselves, as if kindness had filled every corner of the room, reminding her that even though rain remained outside, inside these walls hearts were slowly learning how to heal, how to forgive, and how to find their way back to love. The soft glow of lanterns inside the rainy day bakery trembles as another roll of thunder drifts across the sky, and Oliver glances toward the window where raindrops race each other down the glass, leaving silver trails behind. Maya carries a tray of freshly warmed berry buns toward the counter, humming quietly until she notices Oliver staring at the storm with worry stretching across his face. She places the tray down gently and asks what's bothering him, and he hesitates before admitting that he feels the bakery has become too quiet, that customers have stopped visiting because the rain has lasted too long, and that maybe people are simply tired of their little shop. Maya steps closer and tells him that storms are not the enemy, that sometimes storms slow the world down so hearts can breathe, so smells can settle, and so people can feel safe enough to look for warmth, and that warmth is exactly what the bakery offers. Oliver smiles a little but still wonders aloud if they are enough. If a small shop like theirs can truly make a difference when everyone outside seems to be rushing, struggling, or lost in their own problems. Just then the door opens with the tiny silver ring of the bell, and a man drenched from head to toe steps in, shivering, breathing heavily, and clutching a soggy paper bag like it holds the last piece of his life. Oliver and Maya exchange quick glances before hurrying toward him, helping him remove his soaked coat and guiding him to the chair nearest the oven's warmth. The man apologizes through trembling lips and explains that the rain caught him at the worst possible moment because inside the wet paper bag is a small cake he had ordered from somewhere else for his daughter's birthday, a daughter he hasn't seen in 2 years, and today he wanted to surprise her by showing up with something sweet. But the cake is now ruined, the decorations melted into a mushy swirl. He lifts the bag with shaking hands and a face full of regret, saying he feels like he ruined the only chance he has to make her smile again. Oliver kneels beside him and gently slides the bag away, telling him that the story is not over yet, not while the ovens are still hot and hope is still alive. Maya rushes to the kitchen and begins pulling ingredients from the shelved: strawberries, vanilla cream, soft brown sugar, warm milk, and a touch of lemon zest, and without hesitation she starts crafting a new cake as if the world depends on it. The man watches with disbelief, whispering that he can't afford something like this, that he didn't come here expecting miracles. Oliver places a firm hand on his shoulder and tells him that not all miracles are expensive, and not all kindness demands a price, because sometimes hearts give freely when they sense another heartbreaking. As Maya works, the rain outside grows heavier, the rhythmic tapping on the roof filling the bakery with a soothing melody, almost like the sky itself is cheering for them. The man confesses that he and his daughter had drifted apart after a long series of mistakes he made, that he wants to apologize, to rebuild, to be someone she can depend on again. Oliver listens quietly before telling him that every apology needs two things: courage to speak and sincerity to follow through, and today, he is already showing both just by trying. Maya finishes the cake, decorating it with delicate swirls of cream and tiny pink flowers made from sugar, each one detailed enough to look real. She carries it out with a gentle smile and sets it in front of him, saying softly that every daughter deserves to feel celebrated, and every parent deserves a chance to try again. The man covers his face with his hands as tears fall, not from sadness but from something deeper, something like relief wrapped in gratitude. Oliver cuts a small slice and offers it to him so he can taste it before delivering it, and when the man takes a bite, the warmth spreads across his face like sunshine breaking through the clouds. He stands, holding the cake carefully, and promises that he will make things right, that today will not be wasted. Oliver walks him to the door, opening it just enough for him to step into the rain without letting the storm inside. And the man pauses to say that he will remember this kindness for the rest of his life. When he disappears into the shimmering curtain of rain, Oliver looks at Maya and feels something shift inside him, something quiet but powerful, because he realizes that even on the quietest, rainiest days, this bakery is not just a shop. It is a place where broken hearts come to heal, and where hope rises like warm dough in gentle heat. Maya nudges him lightly and says, "Still think people don't need us?" And Oliver laughs softly, shaking his head as he returns to the counter, feeling a new determination settle in his chest while the rain continues to fall like a comforting lullaby over the little bakery that refuses to stop believing in people. The rain deepens into a steady, soothing rhythm as the evening settles over the small town, and inside the rainy day bakery the warm lights shimmer against the wooden shelves filled with freshly baked treats. Oliver wipes down the counter while Maya organizes jars of cocoa powder and cinnamon, but both of them pause when they hear a sudden tapping sound on the window, softer than the rain but persistent, almost like someone searching for courage on the other side of the glass. Oliver approaches and sees a young girl standing outside under a dripping umbrella decorated with tiny stars, her eyes full of hesitation yet longing, and before he can even open the door fully she whispers in a fragile voice, "If the bakery is still open." Maya rushes to welcome her in, noticing the girl's trembling hands and the way she clutches a worn-out notebook against her chest as if it holds something precious. They lead her to a small table near the fireplace, where she sits with nervous energy swirling around her like a cold breeze. After a gentle moment of silence, the girl reveals her name is Lily, and that she has been passing by the bakery for weeks but never found the courage to step inside because it felt too warm and beautiful for someone like her. Oliver exchanges a confused glance with Maya before sitting beside her and asking why she thinks that. Lily opens the notebook slowly, showing pages filled with drawings of cakes, pastries, and little dreamlike bakery scenes, each one more stunning than the last. She explains that she wants to be a baker one day, but everyone around her tells her that she isn't good enough, that dreamers like her end up disappointed, and that she should choose something realistic. Maya feels her heart tighten as she flips through the sketches. Each drawing is bursting with color, imagination, and emotion, and she gently tells Lily that dreams don't need permission to exist. Lily blushes, shaking her head, confessing that she's been trying to teach herself recipes at home. But every time she bakes something, it fails. The cookies burn, the dough collapses, and her family laughs, calling her a child chasing clouds. Oliver stands, walks to the kitchen, and returns with a small basket filled with slightly messy, imperfect pastries, explaining with a grin that these are from his first year of baking, when everything he touched either exploded, melted, or tasted like sadness. Lily stares at the pastries, then at Oliver, then bursts into a tiny laugh that slips out before she can hold it back. Maya leans forward and tells her that every great baker begins with failures, that mistakes aren't proof of weakness, they're proof of courage, because only brave people try again after falling. Lily's eyes fill with tears, but not from sorrow. It's the kind of tears born when someone finally feels seen. The rain outside softens, as though the storm itself is leaning in to listen, and Maya asks Lily if she would like to try baking something right now, here, in the warmth of the rainy day bakery. Lily is stunned into silence before nodding eagerly, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. Oliver leads her to the kitchen, showing her where the ingredients are kept, and together they prepare a batch of cinnamon rolls, guiding her hands gently, showing her how to knead the dough with love instead of fear. Lily focuses intently, her small hands pressing into the dough, her breath steadying as she learns to feel its softness and rhythm. Maya teaches her how to swirl the cinnamon evenly, how to roll the dough like a soft scroll of promise, and when the rolls are placed into the oven, Lily watches them rise with a blend of awe and hope shining across her face. The moment the warm, sweet scent fills the kitchen, Lily gasps, covering her mouth as though she's witnessing magic. Oliver removes the tray, and Maya lets Lily drizzle the frosting on top, telling her to trust her instinct, because baking is part science and part heart. Lily bites into her very first successful cinnamon roll, and the smile that spreads across her face feels like a sunrise warming the darkest corners of her spirit. She whispers that she didn't think she had it in her, and Oliver tells her gently that greatness often hides inside people until someone offers them a safe place to bloom. Lily hugs her notebook tightly as she prepares to leave, but before stepping out, she turns back with newfound courage and asks if she can return tomorrow to learn more. Maya and Oliver both nod, telling her the rainy day bakery will always be a place where dreams are protected, not mocked. Lily steps into the rain with a confident stride, her umbrella catching the streetlights like scattered stars, and as she disappears into the misty glow, Oliver and Maya feel the bakery fill with a warmth deeper than any oven could create, a warmth born from knowing that even the smallest spark of belief can rescue someone from the darkness of doubt. A soft mist floats through the night as the rain eases into a quiet drizzle, and the rainy day bakery glows like a tiny lighthouse on the dim street, its warm light stretching out into the darkness. Inside, Oliver and Maya clean up after closing time, stacking trays, wiping flour from the counters, and laughing softly about Lily's excitement earlier. But their laughter fades when they hear a slow, heavy knock on the bakery door, not urgent, not frantic, but tired, like someone carrying the weight of too many years on their shoulders. Oliver opens the door to find an elderly woman standing beneath a broken umbrella, her gray hair drenched, her breathing slightly uneven, and her eyes filled with a deep sadness that seems older than the storm itself. Maya rushes forward to guide her inside before she gets colder, settling her into a chair by the oven as Oliver brings a blanket and a warm cup of honey tea. The woman introduces herself as Margaret, her voice trembling like a fragile candle flame fighting the wind, and she apologizes for disturbing them so late. Oliver assures her gently that she's welcome, especially on a rainy night when no one should be alone outside. Margaret holds the warm cup with both hands, staring into the steam as though it contains memories she's afraid to touch. She admits that she walked into the bakery because it looked like a place where hearts are treated kindly, and she didn't know where else to go tonight. Maya sits beside her and listens quietly as Margaret reveals the truth. Tomorrow would have been her wedding anniversary, but her husband passed away last year, and every place in town feels heavy with memories, except this bakery where she and her husband used to stop to share a muffin on rainy afternoons long ago. She explains in a trembling voice that tonight the loneliness became too loud, too large, too unbearable, and she simply wanted to be somewhere warm, somewhere that didn't remind her of everything she lost. Oliver and Maya feel the weight of her words sink into their hearts, and without speaking they exchange a look of understanding before Oliver steps away to the kitchen. Moments later he returns carrying an old recipe book with worn pages, the same book his grandmother once used when teaching him how to bake. He flips to a page titled Golden Honey Muffins and tells Margaret that this recipe was passed down through generations, created by someone who believed that honey carries sunlight even in the darkest seasons. Margaret laughs softly, wiping her eyes, and says her husband always believed the same thing, that sweetness had the power to heal small wounds. Maya helps Margaret stand, guiding her slowly to the kitchen counter, and asks if she would like to help bake the muffins just like she used to with her husband. Margaret hesitates, tears filling her eyes again, but nods slowly, whispering that it would mean more than they could ever understand. Together they gather ingredients: soft butter, rich honey, warm vanilla, freshly grated lemon peel, and a pinch of nutmeg. Oliver mixes the dry ingredients while Margaret carefully pours the honey, watching it stretch in long golden threads that shimmer under the kitchen lights. She touches the spoon with trembling fingers, whispering that her husband always said honey tastes better on rainy days because it reminds you that even storms can make room for sweetness. Maya places her hand over Margaret's gently, helping her stir the mixture without rushing, letting her move at her own pace, letting memory and love guide her hands. As the muffins bake, the air fills with a warm, nostalgic aroma that seems to wrap around Margaret like an embrace from someone she thought she lost forever. She closes her eyes, breathing in deeply, and for the first time that night her expression softens, the pain in her chest loosening like a knot finally beginning to untie. When the muffins are ready, Oliver sets one on a small plate and hands it to her, and Margaret takes a slow bite. Her lips tremble, her eyes fill, and she whispers that it tastes exactly like the muffins her husband used to make on rainy Sundays when they still believed life was long and full of endless mornings. Maya sits beside her, holding her hand softly, telling her that love doesn't disappear, it changes shape. It moves, it grows, and sometimes it finds new places to rest, like this bakery tonight. Margaret finishes the muffin with a peaceful breath, thanking them for giving her a place to feel close to him again, even for just a moment. Before leaving, she asks if she may return tomorrow, not because she wants to chase memories, but because she wants to create new ones that don't belong only to her sorrow. Oliver and Maya both nod, promising her that the rainy day bakery will always have room for her, always have warmth waiting, always have sweetness ready for those who need it most. Margaret steps outside with her umbrella, now repaired by Oliver using string and tape, and as she disappears into the gentle drizzle, Oliver turns off the lights with a deep sense of gratitude. Because nights like this remind them that their little bakery is not simply a place where food is made, it is a shelter for unseen wounds, a refuge for wandering hearts, and a quiet reminder that even the heaviest storms can soften when kindness becomes the warm light waiting on the other side. The morning rain arrives in a gentle hush, coating the streets in a soft silver glow as the rainy day bakery opens its doors once more. The warm scent of vanilla steam rises from the ovens, drifting into the cool air outside. Oliver ties his apron while Maya arranges fresh loaves on the shelves, both of them still thinking about Margaret, Lily, and the countless moments the bakery has witnessed these past days. But before they can say a word, the bakery's door swings open with sudden force, startling them. A teenage boy storms in, drenched, muddy shoes slapping against the wooden floor, fists clenched, jaw tight as if his entire world is crashing inward. Oliver steps forward to greet him, but the boy snaps, asking if they serve anything strong enough to make the day stop hurting. Maya freezes for a moment, hearing the exhaustion in his voice, not anger, but heartbreak disguised as fire. She guides him to a table near the window, where raindrops paint trembling streaks across the glass, and gently places a towel in his hands, telling him to breathe first before speaking. The boy hesitates, swallowing hard, then blurts out that his name is Ethan, and that he ran out of his house in the middle of a fight he didn't mean to start. He explains that his father has been jobless for months, his mother is working double shifts, and the whole house feels like it's collapsing into arguments and silence. Ethan's voice cracks as he says that today he yelled something awful at his father, something he regrets so deeply that his stomach aches. He says he wishes he could take it back, but he doesn't know how to face him now, doesn't know how to fix what he broke. Oliver exchanges a quick glance with Maya, recognizing the raw fear in the boy's eyes, the fear of having hurt someone you love. Oliver sits across from Ethan and quietly asks what he expected to happen when the anger settled. Ethan presses his forehead to his hands, whispering that he didn't expect anything. He was just tired. Tired of pressure, tired of pretending everything is fine, tired of watching his father fall apart silently. Maya kneels beside him and tells him that sometimes when life squeezes too tightly, people say things they don't mean, not because they don't love, but because they don't know how to express the pain sealed inside them. Ethan nods shakily, tears gathering in the corners of his eyes, and he mutters that he wishes he could apologize, but he doesn't think his father will listen. Oliver stands and heads into the kitchen, returning with a bowl of warm chocolate batter, a whisk, and a small collection of toppings: nuts, chips, sprinkles. He places everything in front of Ethan and says, "Whenever things were bad between me and my dad, baking helped us talk without needing to find every right word." Ethan stares at the bowl in confusion until Maya gently explains that baking brownies is more than mixing ingredients. It's a process of patience, softness, heat, and transformation. She tells him that just like the batter, relationships can look messy at first, but with the right care, they can rise again. Ethan hesitantly picks up the whisk, his hands trembling at first, but as he mixes, something in him softens. The rhythm of stirring becomes steady, the chocolate thickens into a smooth swirl, and his breathing slows until it no longer shakes. Maya asks him to choose toppings that remind him of a moment with his father that was warm, not heavy. Ethan thinks hard, picking chocolate chips first because his father used to sneak them into pancakes on Sunday mornings. Then walnuts because they used to crack them open during winter and laugh at how clumsy they both were. And finally a drizzle of caramel, because his father always said life should have a little sweetness no matter how hard things get. They pour the batter into a tray and slide it into the oven. As the rich smell begins to fill the bakery, Ethan's shoulders loosen, his voice quiet but no longer broken. He begins to talk about his father, about how much he respects him even if he never says it out loud, about how scared he feels watching him struggle, about how guilt crawled inside him the moment the angry words left his mouth. Oliver listens, leaning against the counter, nodding gently as he tells Ethan that apologies don't need poetry, they only need honesty. And most importantly, they need timing. Your father may be hurting, Oliver says softly, but hurt people don't stop loving. They just stop knowing how to show it. When the brownies finish baking, the aroma wraps the entire bakery in a warm embrace. Ethan takes a slice, still warm, still soft in the center, and whispers that his father used to say these were his favorite comfort treat. Maya wraps the brownies in a small box tied with a blue ribbon, placing a tiny note on top that reads, "Warm things can fix cold moments." Ethan holds the box to his chest and stands, nervous but determined. He thanks them with a shaky smile, saying he doesn't know what will happen, but he wants to really try to mend what's broken. Oliver opens the door for him, letting the gentle rain kiss his face as he steps outside. Ethan takes a deep breath and begins walking toward home, each step slow but filled with intention. When he disappears down the street, Maya closes the door softly and whispers that she hopes he finds the courage to speak from his heart. Oliver nods, knowing that sometimes the smallest gifts, a warm brownie, a kind word, a safe place to breathe, can become the bridge that saves a family from drifting apart. The bakery settles into a calm silence, filled with the lingering sweetness of chocolate and hope, while the rain continues falling like a soft reminder that storms don't last forever, they simply carve the path for healing to begin. The rain returned the next morning in a gentle, persistent drizzle, casting a silver glow across the wet cobblestones as the rainy day bakery opened its doors. Oliver and Maya moved quietly inside, the scent of warm bread and melted butter greeting them like an old friend. As they prepared pastries, the door opened softly, and a young woman stepped inside, shaking off a dripping umbrella. Her eyes were tired, the kind of exhaustion that ran deeper than sleepless nights or long days. It was the weight of carrying someone else's pain. She introduced herself as Clara, explaining in a voice that trembled slightly that she had come straight from the hospital. Her younger brother had been admitted the night before after an accident, and she had been waiting anxiously, pacing the hallways, afraid to leave, afraid to stay. She had walked past the bakery a dozen times in the rain, drawn by the warm glow inside, and finally mustered the courage to step in, hoping that somewhere safe existed outside the sterile walls of the hospital. Oliver poured her a cup of chamomile tea while Maya brought a soft slice of almond cake, and as Clara sat down, her hands gripping the cup tightly, she confessed that she felt powerless, that she had no control over what happened to her brother, and each beep of the hospital machines haunted her with fear. Maya listened with quiet compassion, telling Clara that fear doesn't disappear overnight, but sometimes a small moment of calm can give a heart enough strength to keep going. The young woman nodded, sipping her tea and letting the warmth seep into her bones. While Clara tried to settle, the door opened again, and Lucas entered, notebook clutched to his chest, smiling shyly as he approached the counter. He explained that he had been writing again, this time a story inspired by people who are brave even when they feel helpless, and he wanted to share it with someone who might need to hear it. Seeing Clara, he quietly asked if he could read the story aloud, and she nodded, her eyes glistening with quiet emotion. Lucas began in his soft, earnest voice, describing a magical bakery where strangers became family, where love and courage rose like dough in warm ovens, and where hearts learned to carry hope even in the heaviest storms. Clara felt the words wrap around her like a comforting hug, each sentence reminding her that even in moments of fear, she was not alone. As the story ended, the door chimed again, and in came Evan with Mila by his side, carrying a small basket filled with fresh cookies they had baked together that morning. They walked to Clara's table and offered her one, saying softly that they believed in sharing sweetness during difficult days. Clara smiled, taking a cookie and letting herself laugh for the first time that day, the tension in her chest easing slightly. The bakery seemed to fill with quiet energy, a blend of warmth, shared stories, and unspoken support, the kind of atmosphere that doesn't just comfort the body, but lifts the heart. Moments later, the teenage girl arrived with her grandfather, their slow steps blending with the soft tapping of rain outside. She noticed Clara immediately and offered a gentle nod, as if acknowledging another soul carrying worry and love at the same time. The old man reached for his croissant, smiling faintly, and whispered that bravery often comes disguised as small acts of endurance, like the steps Clara took to walk into the bakery despite fear. By mid-morning, the bakery was alive with quiet conversations, laughter, and the comforting aroma of baked treats. Clara looked around and realized that in just a few hours, she had found a small sanctuary, a place where hearts carried weight together and allowed each other space to breathe. She finally whispered, almost to herself, that maybe courage isn't about facing the storm alone, but about finding a warm place and trusting that others will help you stand. Oliver and Maya exchanged a soft smile, knowing the little bakery on Willow Street had done exactly what it was meant to do, create a refuge where even the heaviest hearts could feel the gentle lift of hope, one rainy day at a time. The rain fell in a steady, rhythmic drizzle that morning, painting the streets silver and making the world feel slower, softer, and somehow more intimate. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver was kneading dough, the warm scent of yeast and butter wrapping around him like a comforting hug, while Maya arranged freshly baked croissants on the counter, their golden layers glinting under the soft lights. The bell above the door chimed, and a young father stepped inside, carrying a small boy no older than 5, whose tiny boots left wet prints on the wooden floor. The boy's eyes were wide, glistening with curiosity and a touch of fear, and he clutched a worn toy car tightly in one hand. The father explained quietly that his son, Leo, had been scared of thunderstorms for as long as he could remember, and tonight the rain was so loud it made him cry. They had walked past the bakery on the way home, and the father hoped that stepping into a warm place might calm him. Oliver knelt to Leo's level, showing him a small plate of soft cinnamon rolls and asking if he liked sweet things that smelled like hugs. Leo nodded shyly, the corners of his mouth twitching into a tentative smile. Maya handed him a warm mug of milk with a gentle swirl of honey and whispered that the rain was just the sky's way of singing a lullaby, and that it was safe to listen while sipping something warm. As Leo sipped, the father confided that he had been struggling to comfort his son, feeling helpless as the boy's tiny body shook with fear. He whispered that he worried too much, that he wished he could shelter him from everything sad in the world. Oliver placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, telling him that sheltering doesn't always mean stopping the storm. It can mean being present, holding space, and letting someone feel safe even when the sky is loud. Leo's hands gripped the mug tighter, and he whispered that the storm was still scary, but the bakery smelled like home. Maya smiled, gently asking if he wanted to try something fun, baking his own mini pastry while the rain played its music outside. Leo's eyes lit up, and he carefully rolled dough, sprinkled cinnamon, and even attempted to drizzle honey, guided by Maya's soft encouragement. Oliver joined in, teaching him how to shape little stars from leftover dough, telling him that every small shape carried a wish, a hope, and sometimes a little magic. While Leo baked, the door chimed again, and the teenage girl entered with her grandfather, the old man's hand tapping softly with his cane. She noticed Leo immediately, whispering to her grandfather that fear often feels smaller when someone else shares the room with you, and the old man nodded, smiling faintly, as if remembering days when he had learned the same truth as a child. Outside, the rain softened to a mist, and inside the bakery, Oliver pulled a fresh tray of cookies from the oven, handing one to Leo, who took it with wide-eyed delight. The father watched quietly, realizing that courage isn't always a grand act. It can be learning to stay in the room when fear is loud, allowing warmth to guide the heart. As Leo bit into the cookie, his giggle rang out like tiny bells, bouncing across the bakery, bringing smiles to every corner of the room. By mid-morning, the rainy day bakery was alive with soft chatter, laughter, and the comforting scent of baked goods mingling with the rain outside. The father whispered his gratitude to Oliver and Maya, admitting he didn't expect a place like this could make such a difference, and Oliver simply nodded, saying that sometimes the smallest acts, a warm pastry, a gentle word, a shared moment, carry more courage than we realize. Leo looked up, eyes sparkling, and whispered that he wasn't so afraid of storms anymore, because he had tasted sweetness and felt safety at the same time. Maya and Oliver shared a quiet smile, knowing that the bakery had done what it always set out to do, not just fill stomachs, but heal hearts, one rainy day at a time, letting even the smallest souls discover that warmth and courage can rise together, just like fresh bread from the oven. The rain returned in gentle waves that morning, draping the streets in a silvery mist and making the world outside feel like a quiet watercolor painting. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver stirred a large pot of custard while Maya arranged rows of golden scones on the shelves, the warm aroma filling every corner of the cozy space. Just as the first batch of blueberry muffins came out of the oven, the bell above the door jingled softly, and a young woman stepped inside carrying a folded letter pressed tightly to her chest. She introduced herself as Sophie, her voice trembling slightly, and explained that she had recently moved to town, escaping a life that had left her weary and uncertain, and that the letter contained a message from someone she had lost touch with, someone she feared she might never see again. She asked if she could sit and perhaps gather the courage to read it here, where it felt safe. Oliver nodded gently, guiding her to a quiet corner by the fireplace, while Maya poured her a cup of warm tea and placed a small lemon tart on the table. Sophie's hands shook as she unfolded the letter, tracing the words with her finger, and she whispered that the words reminded her of love, forgiveness, and hope, things she had long stopped believing she deserved. As she read, the door chimed again, and Lucas entered carrying his notebook, his face lighting up when he noticed Sophie's tearful but gentle smile. He approached quietly, asking if he could share a short story he had written about people finding courage when they feel lost. Sophie nodded, welcoming the distraction, and Lucas began in his soft, thoughtful voice, describing a magical bakery where rain outside could not touch the warmth inside, where strangers became allies, and where hearts discovered bravery simply by being seen and supported. Sophie listened, letting the words seep into her chest, loosening the tension she had carried for weeks. Her tears fell, but now they were not only of sadness, they were a release, a cleansing of the heart. Before long, the door opened once more, and Mila stepped inside with Evan, holding a basket of tiny pastries she had decorated herself. She placed the basket on Sophie's table, smiling shyly and whispering that sometimes sharing sweetness can help ease heavy hearts, and Sophie laughed softly, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness. Evan added that everyone in the bakery was learning to carry hope together, and that maybe today, she could take a small piece of it with her. The warmth of the room seemed to deepen, the scent of baked goods wrapping around Sophie like a hug, and she realized that the courage to read the letter here was not just about the words on the paper, it was about the presence of people who reminded her that she was not alone. As the rain softened into a delicate mist outside, Sophie finished reading the letter, her face lifted with a mixture of relief, hope, and quiet determination. She folded it carefully, whispering that she now knew she could reach out, that she could speak her truth, and that even though the world outside remained uncertain, she had found a place inside herself where warmth and courage existed. Oliver and Maya watched her quietly, knowing that the bakery had once again fulfilled its quiet mission to transform moments of fear and doubt into spaces of courage and comfort. Sophie smiled, thanking them for creating a place where the storm outside could not touch the heart within, and as she stepped back into the soft drizzle, the bakery glowed brighter, filled with the unspoken truth that even in rainy days, hearts could find hope, connection, and the gentle courage to begin again. The morning rain fell in soft, steady sheets, painting the town in silver and making puddles ripple like tiny mirrors on the cobblestones. Inside the rainy day bakery, the scent of freshly baked bread and warm cinnamon hung thick in the air, wrapping the small space in comfort. Oliver was pulling golden loaves from the oven, while Maya arranged a tray of buttery croissants on the counter. The bell above the door chimed, and a young couple stepped inside, shivering from the damp chill. They introduced themselves as Hannah and Marcus, explaining quietly that they had been arguing all morning, tensions rising over bills, work, and dreams that felt just out of reach. They had passed the bakery on their walk, and something about its warm glow and soft music invited them in, a temporary pause from the storm inside and out. Oliver guided them to a corner table by the window, while Maya poured them each a cup of cocoa, topping it with gentle swirls of whipped cream, and the couple sipped cautiously, letting the warmth seep into their chilled hands and hearts. As they sat quietly, the door chimed again, and Lucas entered, notebook in hand, followed closely by Mila and Evan, carrying small pastries they had made that morning. Lucas approached the couple softly and asked if he could read a story he had written about the power of understanding, listening, and patience in times of conflict. Hannah and Marcus exchanged a glance, then nodded, their expressions softening as Lucas began. He spoke of a small bakery in a rainy town, where people who had lost hope found comfort in listening, sharing, and simply being present with one another. Each word seemed to settle into the couple's chest like warm rain, reminding them that love is not just about passion, but about presence, patience, and small gestures that speak louder than arguments. Moved, Marcus reached for Hannah's hand across the table, squeezing it gently, whispering that he didn't want the day to end in anger, that he wanted to start over, even if only from this moment. Hannah's eyes filled with tears, the tension easing as she responded with a soft smile, realizing that even in disagreements, they still shared a bond worth protecting. Oliver and Maya watched quietly, giving them space while the bakery hummed with the sound of rain and soft laughter. The warmth from the ovens and the aroma of fresh pastries wrapped around them like a blanket, and the couple leaned closer, talking in hushed tones, their voices blending with the gentle patter outside. As the morning passed, the bakery welcomed more visitors, each bringing their own worries and burdens, and the quiet harmony inside created a cocoon of safety and understanding. Hannah and Marcus stayed longer than expected, savoring cocoa and croissants, speaking softly and listening in ways they hadn't in weeks. By the time they left, the rain had slowed to a mist, and they stepped out holding hands, their expressions lighter, their hearts a little fuller, carrying with them the gentle lesson that love is nurtured not only in grand gestures, but in small acts of kindness, patience, and shared warmth. Oliver and Maya returned to their tasks, glancing at each other with quiet satisfaction, knowing once again that the rainy day bakery was not just a place to feed the body, but a haven where hearts learned to mend, where storms softened, and where hope rose, layer by layer, like golden, buttery pastry fresh from the oven. The rain came in soft, persistent whispers that morning, tapping gently against the windows and turning the streets into silver streams. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver slid a tray of warm scones onto the counter while Maya arranged jars of jam and honey, their soft laughter blending with the hum of the oven. Just as they were finishing, the bell above the door rang, and a middle-aged man stepped inside, his coat soaked and hair plastered from the rain. He introduced himself as Mr. Thompson, a quiet, weary teacher who had spent the morning running from school to school, checking on his students during a sudden storm that had left many stranded. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, and he confessed that the day had felt endless, that he worried constantly about the well-being of children who had no one to watch over them. Oliver and Maya guided him to a seat near the oven, offering a cup of tea and a warm almond biscuit, and as he sipped, He let out a sigh of relief, the tension in his shoulders softening just slightly. As Mr. Thompson settled, the door chimed again, and Lucas and Mila entered, followed by Clara from the hospital visit, carrying a basket of tiny pastries they had baked together. Lucas noticed Mr. Thompson and asked softly if he could read a story he had written about the importance of small acts of care. Mr. Thompson nodded, and Lucas began, describing a bakery in the rain where every kind gesture, every warm pastry, every patient ear, helped someone feel seen and valued, even on the hardest days. Mr. Thompson's expression softened as he listened, memories of his students flickering across his mind, the small smiles, the shy thank yous, the moments when he felt his work mattered. Maya invited Mr. Thompson to help decorate a batch of cupcakes, explaining that creating something small and beautiful could carry hope further than he imagined. Hesitant at first, he began to frost cupcakes with care, placing sprinkles on each one as though he were leaving little messages of encouragement for someone unseen. Lucas and Mila joined in, laughing softly as frosting and sprinkles accidentally smeared on their fingers, the warmth of shared purpose filling the bakery. Clara, watching quietly, whispered that even on the stormiest days, people could be reminded of hope by small acts of kindness. By mid-morning, the bakery was alive with laughter, soft chatter, and the scent of freshly baked bread. Mr. Thompson packed a small box of cupcakes to deliver to his students later, his heart lighter than it had been all morning. Before leaving, he paused at the door, looking back at Oliver, Maya, and the children, and said softly that sometimes all someone needs is to feel noticed, to have warmth offered without asking, and that today, the bakery had reminded him why he became a teacher in the first place. Outside, the rain had softened to a mist, and he walked down the street with the box of cupcakes in his hands, each step lighter than the last. Oliver and Maya returned to their work, smiling quietly at each other, knowing the rainy day bakery had once again done what it always did, transform ordinary mornings, ordinary storms, and ordinary souls into moments of connection, care, and gentle courage, one warm pastry at a time. The rain had slowed to a soft drizzle, leaving the streets glistening and the air smelling fresh and earthy, when the rainy day bakery opened its doors for another morning of warmth and comfort. Oliver was arranging freshly baked loaves on the counter while Maya prepared a batch of chocolate croissants, their golden layers glistening in the soft light. The bell above the door jingled, and a small group of teenagers stepped inside, their jackets soaked and hair plastered from the rain. They introduced themselves shyly as part of a local youth club, explaining that they had been walking home from school when the sudden downpour forced them to seek shelter. They admitted that they didn't usually stop in bakeries, but the soft glow of lights and the inviting aroma drew them in. Oliver smiled and welcomed them warmly, guiding them to a corner table where they could dry off while Maya poured hot cocoa for each of them, topping it with a swirl of whipped cream. As the teens settled, Lucas appeared with his notebook in hand, followed by Mila, who carried a small basket of cookies she had decorated herself. Lucas approached the group cautiously, asking if he could read a story he had written about courage, kindness, and small acts of bravery. The teenagers nodded, curiosity flickering in their eyes, and Lucas began to speak in his soft, earnest voice. describing a bakery that became a haven during storms, where people who felt overlooked or unsure could discover that even small gestures like offering a warm pastry or listening without judgment had the power to lift spirits and transform hearts. The teens listened quietly, some leaning forward, some whispering soft ahs and nods as Lucas painted a picture of hope with his words. Maya invited them to join in decorating cupcakes, explaining that baking was more than following a recipe. It was about putting a piece of your heart into something you shared with others. Hesitant at first, the teens began to frost cupcakes, adding sprinkles and small touches of color, laughing as frosting smeared across fingers and cheeks. Oliver guided them gently, reminding them that mistakes didn't matter. What mattered was effort, intention, and the joy of giving. Slowly, the atmosphere transformed from awkward shyness to warm camaraderie, the teens realizing that even in the quiet drizzle outside, they had found a place where they could belong and be seen. As the morning continued, the bakery filled with soft chatter, the sound of laughter mingling with the aroma of fresh pastries. One teen whispered to another that they had never felt so comfortable sharing a space with strangers before, while another quietly remarked that they wanted to try baking more at home, inspired by the care and warmth they had experienced. Before leaving, they thanked Oliver and Maya, promising to return not only for the pastries, but for the kindness and safe space that the bakery always offered. As the door closed behind them, the smell of chocolate and baked bread lingered, mingling with the soft drizzle outside. Oliver and Maya shared a quiet, satisfied smile, knowing that once again the rainy day bakery had done what it always did, transform ordinary rainy mornings into moments of courage, connection, and gentle hope, showing that even small acts of kindness could leave a lasting mark on hearts young and old. The rain fell steadily that afternoon, a soft silver curtain draping the streets outside, while inside the rainy day bakery, warm light spilled across the wooden floor, illuminating the golden trays of pastries cooling on the counters. Oliver was brushing flour off his hands while Maya arranged jars of honey and preserves, their movements quiet and comforting. The bell above the door jingled softly, and a young mother entered, carrying a small bundle in her arms. She introduced herself as Grace, explaining that her baby, Samuel, had been fussy all morning, and the persistent rain made it impossible to calm him at home. She had walked past the bakery several times, drawn by the warmth and inviting aroma, and now she hoped that a cozy corner and gentle company could soothe both her and her son. Oliver led her to a seat near the fireplace, while Maya brewed a cup of warm milk for Samuel, adding a touch of honey to soften his fussy cries. As Samuel calmed in his mother's arms, the door jingled again, and Lucas entered with his notebook, smiling shyly as he noticed Samuel's tiny hands reaching for the warmth of the fire. Lucas approached Grace and whispered softly if he could read a story he had written about courage, patience, and small acts of love. Grace nodded, a gentle smile forming despite her fatigue, and Lucas began to read about a magical bakery where even the stormiest days were softened by kindness, warmth, and the bravery of people who reached out to help one another. As he read, Grace felt her tension ease, each word wrapping around her like a comforting blanket, and Samuel's eyes slowly closed in contentment. Moments later, Mila wandered in, carrying a small basket of soft cookies, each decorated with tiny hearts. She approached Samuel and offered him a cookie shaped like a star, explaining softly that stars were for hope, even on cloudy days. Grace chuckled, taking a small bite herself, and whispered that it had been so long since she felt this peaceful, that the bakery seemed to hold a gentle magic she could not explain. Maya suggested that Grace try helping Samuel decorate a mini cupcake, a task that seemed impossible at first, but as she carefully spread frosting and sprinkled sugar, she realized that patience and love could create beauty, even when circumstances felt chaotic. By mid-afternoon, the rainy day bakery hummed softly with warmth, conversation, and the aroma of baked goods mingling with the soft patter of rain outside. Grace looked around, realizing that the bakery had given her more than just comfort for Samuel. It had offered her a moment to breathe, to feel capable, and to trust that small acts of care mattered. She whispered quietly that she would return, not just for the pastries, but for the gentle reminder that even in the storm, hearts could find strength and calm. Oliver and Maya shared a knowing glance, understanding that their bakery had once again done what it always did, transform ordinary, rain-filled days into spaces where love, patience, and hope could rise, filling hearts like warm dough fresh from the oven. The rain fell in soft, steady sheets, blurring the streets outside into silver reflections as the rainy day bakery filled with the warm scent of freshly baked bread and sweet pastries. Oliver was kneading dough at the counter while Maya arranged a tray of golden eclairs, their chocolate glistening under the soft morning light. Just as they were finishing, the bell above the door jingled, and a young artist stepped inside, carrying a soaked sketchbook under one arm. He introduced himself as Theo, explaining that he had been wandering the rainy streets searching for inspiration, but found only gray skies and puddles reflecting his own frustration. He noticed the bakery's glow and the rich aroma of baked goods, and hoped that inside he might find a spark of creativity again. Oliver guided him to a small table by the window while Maya poured him a warm cup of cocoa, topping it with a swirl of whipped cream, and Theo's eyes lit up as the warmth seeped into his chilled fingers. As Theo sipped, Lucas appeared, notebook in hand, followed by Mila carrying a basket of tiny pastries decorated with delicate icing patterns. Lucas asked Theo if he would like to hear a story he had written about imagination, courage, and finding beauty in unlikely places. Theo nodded, curiosity flickering in his eyes, and Lucas began, describing a bakery in the rain where hearts discovered their strengths, where creativity could blossom even on the cloudiest days, and where small gestures of kindness helped people see the world differently. Theo listened intently, feeling the words ignite a small flame in his chest, reminding him that inspiration was not always about grand visions. It could be found in warmth, comfort, and connection. Maya suggested that Theo try sketching something while enjoying the pastries, offering him a plate of cream puffs and encouraging him to let his imagination flow freely. Tentatively, Theo opened his sketchbook and began to draw the bakery the way the rain looked against the windows, the soft glow of light on the pastries, the gentle interactions of people sharing warmth and kindness. As he sketched, his frustration melted, replaced by wonder and calm. Mila brought him a tiny eclair shaped like a star, whispering that stars were for dreams that refused to give up, and Theo smiled, letting the sweetness inspire his pen. By late morning, the bakery hummed with soft chatter, laughter, and the quiet tapping of raindrops against the windows. Theo looked around, realizing that the magic of the bakery was not just in the food or warmth, but in the way it allowed people to feel safe, inspired, and seen. He whispered that he had found more than a sketch. He had found hope, creativity, and a sense of belonging. Oliver and Maya exchanged a quiet smile, knowing once again that the rainy day bakery had done what it always did, transform ordinary rainy mornings into spaces of courage, inspiration, and gentle comfort, where hearts could open, dreams could bloom, and even the heaviest storms could be softened by warmth and kindness. The rain tapped gently against the windows, a soft, steady rhythm that filled the rainy day bakery with a sense of calm. Inside, Oliver arranged trays of golden muffins while Maya brushed powdered sugar over freshly baked cinnamon twists, the sweet scent mingling with the warm, cozy light of the shop. The bell above the door jingled, and an elderly man entered, leaning on a cane, his coat dripping and his eyes carrying the weight of many quiet years. He introduced himself as Mr. Whitaker and explained that he used to walk past the bakery every day, but had never felt brave enough to enter until today. The rain had pushed him inside, and he hoped that a warm place and a kind smile might ease some of the loneliness that had grown around him like a shadow. Oliver guided him to a chair by the oven while Maya poured a warm cup of tea and placed a soft almond cookie in front of him. As Mr. Whitaker sipped his tea, the door chimed again, and a young mother entered, holding her fidgety toddler, followed by Lucas and Mila carrying a basket of freshly baked mini muffins. Lucas asked Mr. Whitaker if he would like to hear a story he had written about courage, patience, and the quiet ways people help each other without realizing it. Mr. Whitaker nodded, and Lucas began, telling of a bakery in the rain where strangers became friends, where each act of kindness, no matter how small, wove a tapestry of comfort, hope, and connection that stretched far beyond the walls of the shop. Mr. Whitaker's eyes softened as he listened, recalling moments in his own life where small gestures had meant more than grand events, and he felt a gentle warmth spreading through his chest. Maya suggested that Mr. Whitaker try decorating a mini pastry with Lucas and Mila, saying that creating something small could carry joy further than one might expect. Hesitant at first, he carefully spread a thin layer of frosting and placed a few sprinkles on top, smiling quietly when Mila complimented his work. The young mother joined in, laughing softly as her toddler smeared frosting across the table, and Mr. Whitaker chuckled along, realizing that even in small, messy moments, there was happiness to be found. By mid-morning, the bakery was alive with soft laughter, gentle conversation, and the comforting aroma of baked goods mingling with the drizzle outside. Mr. Whitaker packed a small box of pastries to take home, his heart lighter than when he had arrived. Before leaving, he paused at the door, thanking Oliver, Maya, and the children for creating a place where warmth, patience, and kindness could heal invisible wounds. As he stepped back into the misty rain, he felt a renewed sense of hope, knowing that even in quiet, rainy days, hearts could be lifted, connections could be made, and the smallest acts of care could leave lasting impressions. Oliver and Maya returned to their work, sharing a quiet smile, knowing that the rainy day bakery had once again transformed an ordinary day into a moment of comfort, courage, and gentle joy. The rain fell in soft, silver sheets that morning, turning the streets into shimmering mirrors and giving the world a quiet, reflective glow. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver was pulling golden loaves from the oven while Maya arranged a tray of warm, buttery croissants, their scent filling the air with comfort and sweetness. The bell above the door jingled, and a young boy entered, his backpack slung over one shoulder, soaked from the morning rain. He introduced himself as Jamie and explained that he had been bullied at school, feeling small and unseen, and that the rain had pushed him to seek refuge somewhere warm and quiet. Oliver guided him to a corner table by the fireplace, while Maya poured him a cup of hot chocolate with a gentle swirl of whipped cream, and Jamie's eyes brightened as the warmth seeped into his cold fingers and tense shoulders. As Jamie sipped his drink, the door chimed again, and Lucas arrived, notebook in hand, followed by Mila carrying a basket of tiny cookies decorated with bright smiles and cheerful colors. Lucas asked Jamie if he would like to hear a story about courage, resilience, and finding kindness in unexpected places. Jamie nodded, leaning forward, and Lucas began, describing a magical bakery in the rain where people who felt unseen could discover that even small acts of compassion could build courage, that warmth and kindness could be shared freely, and that storms both outside and inside could be softened with care and connection. Jamie listened quietly, feeling the words wrap around him like a protective blanket, and for the first time that morning, a small smile appeared on his face. Maya suggested that Jamie try decorating a cupcake, explaining that creating something beautiful could help him feel empowered and confident. Tentatively, Jamie spread frosting across the top, sprinkled it with tiny stars, and even managed to draw a small heart with a careful finger. The simple act of creation made him giggle, and Oliver and Lucas encouraged him gently, showing him that mistakes were part of the process and that bravery often began with small, imperfect steps. By mid-morning, the bakery was filled with soft laughter, warm aromas, and the quiet patter of rain against the windows. Jamie packed a small cupcake in his backpack to take home, feeling stronger, braver, and more seen than he had in weeks. Before leaving, he thanked Oliver, Maya, Lucas, and Mila, saying that the bakery had given him more than pastries. It had given him a moment to feel safe, valued, and capable. As he stepped back into the gentle drizzle, he held his cupcake like a tiny talisman of courage. Oliver and Maya returned to their work, sharing a quiet smile, knowing that the rainy day bakery had once again done what it always did, turn ordinary, rain-filled mornings into spaces of hope, resilience, and gentle encouragement, teaching hearts young and old alike that warmth and kindness can rise even in the stormiest of days. The rain had returned in a soft, steady drizzle, casting the streets outside in silvery reflections that made everything feel calm and introspective. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver was kneading a fresh batch of dough while Maya carefully arranged a tray of golden muffins, their aroma blending with the warm, cozy light that filled the small shop. Just as they were finishing, the bell above the door jingled, and a young woman stepped in, her umbrella dripping, her cheeks flushed from the cold. She introduced herself as Emily and explained that she had been walking home after a long, exhausting day at the hospital where she worked, feeling drained and overwhelmed. She had passed the bakery countless times, but never had the courage to enter until today, seeking warmth, a quiet place to breathe, and maybe a slice of something sweet to lift her spirits. Oliver guided her to a chair near the oven while Maya poured her a cup of warm chamomile tea and placed a small chocolate tart in front of her, the steam curling gently into the air. As Emily sipped the tea, letting the warmth seep into her hands, the bell chimed again, and Lucas entered with his notebook, smiling softly when he noticed Emily. He asked if she would like to hear a story about hope, resilience, and finding comfort in unexpected places, and Emily nodded quietly. Lucas began to read of a magical bakery where weary hearts found refuge, where small acts of kindness and warmth helped people carry burdens they thought were too heavy, and where courage could bloom even on the darkest, rainiest days. Emily listened intently, feeling the words ease the tight knot in her chest, reminding her that she was not alone, and that even small gestures like sharing tea or a smile could ripple far beyond the moment. Maya suggested that Emily try decorating a cupcake, telling her that even a small act of creation could help release some of the stress she carried. Tentatively, Emily spread frosting across the cupcake and added a few sprinkles, smiling softly at the simple joy it brought her. Lucas encouraged her gently, saying that bravery is often quiet and gentle, found in moments when we allow ourselves to pause, breathe, and take care of our hearts. By mid-morning, the bakery hummed with warmth, soft chatter, and the comforting aroma of baked goods mingling with the drizzle outside. Emily finished her tart and carefully packed a small pastry to take home, feeling a sense of calm and renewal she hadn't expected to find that day. Before leaving, she whispered her thanks to Oliver, Maya, and Lucas, acknowledging that the bakery had given her more than comfort. It had reminded her that even in life's busiest and stormiest moments, hearts could find strength, hope, and gentle peace. As she stepped back into the soft rain, holding her pastry like a small beacon of encouragement, Oliver and Maya exchanged a quiet smile, knowing once again that the rainy day bakery had done what it always did: transform ordinary rainy mornings into havens of warmth, hope, and healing for every soul who walked through its doors. The rain fell in a soft, steady rhythm, drumming gently against the windows and filling the streets with a reflective silver glow. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver was carefully glazing a tray of golden danishes while Maya arranged a stack of warm, flaky croissants, the sweet aroma mingling with the soft hum of the ovens. The bell above the door chimed, and a young boy ran inside, shaking off raindrops from his hood. He introduced himself as Leo and explained that he had been out delivering newspapers in the rain, feeling tired and discouraged because his routes had been especially difficult that morning. Oliver led him to a small table near the window while Maya poured a warm cup of cocoa and offered him a freshly baked muffin. Leo's eyes brightened as he took a careful sip, letting the warmth spread through his cold, damp hands. As Leo settled, the bell jingled again, and Lucas entered with his notebook, followed by Mila carrying a small basket of cookies decorated with cheerful designs. Lucas asked Leo if he would like to hear a story he had written about perseverance, courage, and finding hope in small, unexpected places. Leo nodded, leaning forward, and Lucas began to read about a magical bakery where the rain could not dampen the warmth inside, where each small act of kindness helped someone feel stronger, and where courage could grow quietly, like dough rising in the oven. Leo listened intently, imagining himself walking through the bakery's doors and finding comfort even on the stormiest mornings. Maya suggested that Leo try decorating a cupcake, explaining that each swirl of frosting and sprinkle placed with care could carry a small piece of hope. Hesitant at first, Leo began spreading frosting and carefully adding a few sprinkles, his frown softening into a shy smile. Oliver encouraged him gently, reminding him that bravery doesn't always mean fighting the storm outside. It often begins with small steps, moments of patience, and acts of care for oneself and others. By mid-morning, the bakery was alive with soft chatter, laughter, and the comforting scent of baked goods mingling with the drizzle outside. Leo packed a muffin and a small cupcake to take home, his heart lighter and his courage quietly strengthened. Before leaving, he whispered his thanks to Oliver, Maya, Lucas, and Mila, acknowledging that the bakery had offered him more than warmth. It had given him a reminder that even on rainy, difficult days, hope could rise, kindness could prevail, and small moments of courage could make a world of difference. As he stepped back into the gentle rain, holding his treats like talismans, Oliver and Maya shared a quiet smile, knowing once again that the rainy day bakery had transformed an ordinary day into a space of hope, comfort, and gentle inspiration. The rain fell softly, a rhythmic whisper against the windows, casting the streets in shimmering reflections that made the town feel suspended in a quiet, silver haze. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver carefully pulled a tray of warm cinnamon rolls from the oven, while Maya arranged delicate lemon tarts on the counter, their golden edges glistening in the soft morning light. The bell above the door jingled, and a young woman stepped inside, shaking off her wet coat. She introduced herself as Clara, explaining that she had been feeling overwhelmed with work and life, and the endless rain outside mirrored the heaviness in her heart. Oliver led her to a cozy corner by the fireplace while Maya poured her a cup of chamomile tea, adding a small spoonful of honey, and placed a soft almond cookie in front of her. Clara's shoulders relaxed as she sipped the tea, the warmth melting some of the tension she had carried all morning. As Clara settled, the bell chimed again, and Lucas entered, notebook in hand, followed by Mila with a basket of tiny pastries decorated with gentle swirls of icing. Lucas approached Clara and asked if she would like to hear a story about hope, patience, and discovering comfort even in difficult days. Clara nodded quietly, and Lucas began to read about a magical bakery where rain outside could not touch the warmth inside, where small acts of kindness, sharing a pastry, offering a smile, lending a listening ear could transform even the heaviest hearts, and where courage grew quietly in moments of care and connection. Clara listened, feeling the words seep into her chest, soothing the anxiety that had felt insurmountable just minutes before. Maya suggested that Clara try decorating a cupcake, explaining that the act of creating something small and beautiful could bring a sense of calm and accomplishment. Tentatively, Clara spread frosting and added a few sprinkles, her hands shaking slightly at first, but gradually settling as she immersed herself in the simple joy of creation. Oliver encouraged her gently, reminding her that even small gestures of self-care and moments of focus could provide strength and clarity when life felt overwhelming. By mid-morning, the bakery was alive with soft chatter, warm laughter, and the comforting scent of pastries mingling with the rain outside. Clara packed a small tart and cupcake to take with her, feeling a renewed sense of calm and hope she hadn't expected to find. Before leaving, she whispered her gratitude to Oliver, Maya, Lucas, and Mila, acknowledging that the bakery had given her more than just warmth. It had offered a sanctuary, a moment to breathe, and a gentle reminder that even on rainy, challenging days, hearts could find peace, courage, and the quiet strength to carry on. As she stepped back into the drizzle, clutching her treats like small talismans of hope, Oliver and Maya shared a soft smile, knowing once again that the rainy day bakery had done what it always did, turn ordinary rainy mornings into moments of comfort, resilience, and gentle inspiration for every soul who walked through its doors. The rain fell in soft, steady sheets, drumming gently on the windows and turning the streets outside into shimmering silver rivers. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver was carefully pulling a tray of golden brioche from the oven, while Maya arranged delicate pastries on a shelf, their buttery aroma filling the air with warmth and comfort. The bell above the door jingled, and a young man stepped inside, shaking off raindrops from his coat. He introduced himself as Daniel, explaining that he had been struggling with self-doubt and disappointment after a failed project at work, and the storm outside seemed to mirror the heaviness in his heart. Oliver guided him to a cozy chair by the oven while Maya poured him a warm cup of cocoa, topping it with a swirl of whipped cream, and placed a soft chocolate muffin in front of him. Daniel's shoulders relaxed slightly as he sipped the drink, letting the warmth seep into his cold, tense hands. As Daniel settled, the bell chimed again, and Lucas entered with his notebook, followed by Mila carrying a basket of pastries decorated with delicate designs. Lucas asked Daniel if he would like to hear a story about resilience, hope, and finding courage even when the world feels heavy. Daniel nodded quietly, and Lucas began to read about a magical bakery where people came in carrying invisible burdens, and where the simple acts of kindness, offering a pastry, sharing a smile, lending a listening ear, could ignite strength and inspire hope. Daniel listened intently, imagining himself stepping into the bakery's warmth and feeling the weight of his worries begin to lift, replaced by a quiet sense of possibility. Maya suggested that Daniel try decorating a cupcake, explaining that creating something small and beautiful could help him reconnect with joy and confidence. Hesitant at first, Daniel carefully spread frosting and added a few sprinkles, a small smile forming as he became absorbed in the simple act of creation. Oliver encouraged him gently, reminding him that courage and resilience often grow in quiet, everyday moments, and that progress isn't always measured by grand accomplishments, but by small steps taken with care and intention. By mid-morning, the bakery hummed with warmth, laughter, and the comforting scent of freshly baked goods blending with the soft patter of rain outside. Daniel packed a muffin and a cupcake to take with him, feeling a renewed sense of hope and determination he hadn't felt since his failure. Before leaving, he whispered his gratitude to Oliver, Maya, Lucas, and Mila, acknowledging that the bakery had given him more than food. It had offered a moment of peace, encouragement, and a gentle reminder that even in the heaviest storms, hearts could find strength, warmth, and courage. As he stepped back into the drizzle, clutching his treats like small tokens of resilience, Oliver and Maya exchanged a quiet smile, knowing once again that the rainy day bakery had transformed an ordinary rainy morning into a space of healing, hope, and gentle inspiration. The rain fell in a steady, gentle drizzle, tapping softly against the windows and turning the streets outside into a shimmering mosaic of silver reflections. Inside the rainy day bakery, Oliver was carefully arranging freshly baked croissants on a tray while Maya brushed powdered sugar over a batch of warm scones, filling the air with the comforting aroma of butter and sweet spices. The bell above the door jingled, and a young girl entered, holding tightly onto her mother's hand. She introduced herself as Lily, explaining that she had been feeling anxious about her first day at a new school, worried about making friends and fitting in. Oliver led her to a cozy corner by the window, while Maya poured her a cup of warm cocoa, topping it with a swirl of whipped cream and a few chocolate sprinkles. Lily's shoulders relaxed slightly as she took a careful sip, letting the warmth seep into her chilled hands and calming the nervous flutter in her chest. As Lily settled, the door chimed again, and Lucas entered with his notebook, followed by Mila carrying a basket of small cupcakes decorated with cheerful faces. Lucas asked Lily if she would like to hear a story about bravery, kindness, and finding confidence in unexpected places. Lily nodded, her eyes wide with curiosity, and Lucas began to read about a magical bakery in the rain where people who felt nervous or unsure could discover that even small acts of courage, smiling at a stranger, sharing a pastry, or simply trying something new could transform fear into confidence. Lily listened quietly, imagining herself walking through the bakery's doors and feeling the warmth and encouragement wrap around her like a gentle hug. Maya suggested that Lily try decorating a cupcake, explaining that creating something with her own hands could help her feel capable and proud. Tentatively, Lily spread frosting, added sprinkles, and carefully drew a tiny heart with a finger, her nervous expression softening into a shy smile. Oliver encouraged her gently, reminding her that bravery isn't always loud or grand. It often begins in small, quiet moments, like walking into a new place, trying something new, or believing in oneself when it feels hard. By mid-morning, the bakery hummed with soft laughter, the comforting scent of pastries mingling with the drizzle outside. Lily packed a cupcake to take with her, feeling a newfound sense of courage and excitement for the day ahead. Before leaving, she whispered her thanks to Oliver, Maya, Lucas, and Mila, acknowledging that the bakery had given her more than treats. It had offered a moment of reassurance, a spark of confidence, and a gentle reminder that even in uncertain times, hearts could find strength, warmth, and encouragement. As she stepped back into the soft rain, clutching her cupcake like a small talisman of courage, Oliver and Maya shared a quiet smile, knowing once again that the rainy day bakery had transformed an ordinary rainy morning into a sanctuary of hope, bravery, and gentle inspiration.